An update on my 26 male divorced my wife, 25 female, over her decade long affair with cousin.
Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started.
An update on my 26 male divorced my wife, 25 female, over her decade long affair with cousin. Okay? Well, a bunch has happened since the day or 2 days since my last update. First, the good news, I got my HIV rapid test and it came back negative. Thought it would take days or months, but literally learned in the same visit. I am going to get tested again obviously next few months, and for now, I am going to live my life as if I do have it, just to be extra careful. Mac's wife, who I'll be calling Sherry from now on, accompanied me for support. Her own appointment is in 2 days. Well, I had a first long sit down with a soon to be ex wife. We had an understandably explosive sit down earlier in the week, and we've talked sparsely in between. I left this out, but I've been calling her at my son's bedtime to say goodnight to him. At the moment, he is under the impression that I am just working a lot, planning on telling him the truth in the following days, or truth good enough for a 6-year-old. Reconciliation was never on the table. She knew this and didn't try to push it, which I was thankful for. Her reasons shouldn't concern me. They can't benefit me in any way, but giving myself to emotions for the moment, I asked her to be truthful and tell me how long it's been going on and why, or if I did something that would push her to this. She looks like she's been crying on and off, but she was fairly calm in talking with me about it. And by how candid she was, I can tell it's probably the truth, and she's somewhat relieved to be talking about it in a weird and fucked up way. Long story short, she's the instigator. She didn't say as much, but she's in love with him, and they aren't together because obviously. I'm learning now that I'm basically the equivalent of one of those shame wives that gay men would marry so they could seem normal. That's a pretty crushing. She insists she loved and loves me, but I don't believe it, nor does it matter anymore. My life for the past 6 years was a lie. Probably just a cover for this bullshit. I don't know if I even know what real love, romantic love looks like, and that's got me more than a little fucked up. She looked hurt seeing me hurt, but I don't know if it was real. Not that it matters anyway. The important thing we discussed was my stepson and what we will do moving forward. Before I could say anything, she told me she wouldn't oppose something like weekend custody and would sign that in the divorce. I honestly think she is extremely remorseful about how this affects him. A lot of telling me I am his father, his only dad, and taking me away from him would be so damaging. We're going to tell him the bad news in a few days. Tomorrow or today, whenever I post this, I'll be taking him to the zoo. I was thinking of telling him after that, but he loves the zoo, and I really don't want him thinking of his parents' divorce every time he sees it. It's tearing me up having to think of a way best to scar my child for life. I'm thinking about how to make it positive, like telling him how in my new apartment he'll have a new room and he can paint it how he wants and help me get stuff for it. Make him feel like he and I are a team, like a way to make things terrible shit fun. We aren't wealthy, so basically we're just going to keep what we have in our already separate accounts, divide up the remainder of our utility bills in a fair way, and just get the divorce. We discussed meeting at a courthouse and having me file divorce right in front of her, so she can be served at that minute. I want it over as fast as possible, and seeing as she's giving me the only thing I want, refusing the idea of child support, you didn't make him, and you didn't do this to him. As much as I hate her right now, I am impressed that she seems to at least want to make amends for this. Maybe she just wants a weekends off to screw her cousin, but honestly, as long as I get him to remain a dad, I might as well have one today. In other related news, yesterday or 2 days ago, whenever I post this, I went to visit Sherry, Mac's soon to be ex, to see how she's holding up. When I arrived, Mac's parents were there and were surprised to see me. I got a hug from my wife's aunt, and she was crying and apologizing so much it almost made me cry. She was under the impression that I was never going to see my son again, which really upset her. Because, and I didn't know this, but she used to love watching me play with my son at family gatherings. Basically, they're going to continue to allow Sherry and the baby to stay in their second home for as long as they like. Under the circumstances, Max will not be allowed there anymore and basically disowned at this point. I'm not sure this was mentioned before, but the family seems to have gotten the idea that Max molested my wife and that this is some kind of abuse or Stockholm syndrome. And call me an asshole, but for the sake of my son's stability, I will do nothing to correct them. If letting them believe this allow my wife to live at home with her fox and not having them fight over this in front of my boy, then I will omit this. Sherry is a mess as one would expect. She has a moments of being okay followed by tears, followed by anger. But the more she talks about subjects not related to this calmer she gets. Her family is going to be paying for her to see a therapist, and her brother is coming to the state for a week to be with her, and her mom is basically moving in with her for a month after that to try and help her cope. I got to feed her daughter today, such a cute kid, and melted away my anxiety for a little while. Last night, my friends and I went to the movies and I asked her if she'd like to come along. I'm glad she came along, but I've always realized that I either need to put some distance between Sharon and I, or I need to talk with her about what I think is happening. Nothing has been said really, but she's casually touching me. She is something we never did prior to this. I had a tension headache and mentioned a knot in my neck, and unprompted, she started rubbing my shoulders. Also unprompted, during my test, when the doctor left the room, she held my hand. It's probably all just me overthinking things due to my rejection, loneliness, and wanting to feel accepted. But I'm infatuated with her. Whenever I'm not obsessing over all the terrible things going on in my life, I find myself thinking of her in a romantic light, and while it's probably not a healthy feeling, anything positive is preferably the feeling nothing but misery and doubt. Again, maybe I'm reading too much into this, and I'm mistaking her emotional support as something more than it, because my mind is fucked. But she's acting toward me now. How past girlfriends and even the ex-wife did before I officially started seeing them. I mentioned it in the comments that I was trying to lighten the mood with my dark humor and said something like, I can't go out and get a revenge lay without a possibility of killing someone. Referencing my HIV fears, and her response was to bring up the fact that if I am infected, by default she is most likely infected too, and that since our partners were sleeping together in a gross way, it's like she and I were already having sex. There were a few moments after that, and a look which I took to be an invitation, but I changed the subject. I should be thinking about more important things, but I'm getting distracted by this. Part of me, the smarter part, knows that a foundation like this is horrible, and acting on it might spell disaster for our upcoming divorces. On the other hand, I do have a real mental and physical attraction to this woman. One I'm 75% sure is a mutual, and I fear that not acting will make her think I'm not open to this at any point, and she'll move on and I'll lose another person who makes me happy. If anybody has any answer for this goddamn help, lol. But a huge digression aside, I still feel like I'm on the verge of a nervous breakdown, but the divorce seems to be going in a favorable for me. I will still be a dad. Oh, and where is Max in all of this? Nobody really knows, but he was couch surfing the first 2 nights with friends out of state. He's called Sherry like 3 times since she went nuclear, but that's it.